Hello and welcome to Odds on Champions League. Yes, Champions League is back. Our favorite competition is back on Tuesday. So we have Dani Fisichella and Alvaro Romeo. Hello to analyze with us the 8 games we have on Tuesday. So if you want to know what is going on, follow us. Don't forget, press the like, subscribe. I want to thank you, all of you. We have already 20K subscribers, so hopefully we make this channel bigger and bigger. Congratulations to everyone following us and working with us. Comment the video, ask any question to Dani, Alvaro, and now let's go on with the show. And in case you wanna register with a bookmaker, we have a special welcome bonus with 1xbet. You can get up to 130% of the welcome bonus. Don't forget, we have a link for you in the description, and also we have a promo code. Champions League is starting on Tuesday. We have 2 games to start with, Milan, Newcastle, and Young Boys, Leipzig at that time, but we are going to Group E, actually, and the first game, because we are going to analyze them in order of the groups. Group E, Feyenoord, Celtic. Danny is a big fan of Scottish football, so I'm sure he was watching the Old Firm a couple of weeks ago, where Celtic won and beat Rangers. Last season they were very poor in the Champions League, only with 2 points. Usually, actually, they are not great in the Champions League, especially when they play away, and the bookies know that, Danny, they only give Feyenoord to win 1.6.
Celtic are in a bit of a transition because this season marks the return of Brendan Rodgers, who's been really successful, of course, successful at Celtic after a couple of years of Ange Postecoglou. And Celtic are a young side. They only have 2 players over 30, Joe Hart and the captain McGregor. And I think it takes a little bit of time for them to find the way. They didn't start the season particularly well. They were knocked out of the League Cup in Scotland, which for them is a disaster because obviously they cannot win the title, and normally they win 3 or 4 titles domestically, but they beat Rangers away 1-0 in the Old Firm with a great boost. Kyogo Furuhashi scored. And then the weekend against Dundee, they needed to be patient. They played really well after taking the lead again with Kyogo. As I said, it is a team in a transition because every summer they do make changes. This summer, Jota went to Saudi Arabia, but they got new players, younger players. Now they understand that they need to scout those markets in Asia, in Saudi, in Australia, which other teams don't go for, and there are real bargains, there are real opportunities. So they got the likes of Luis Palma from Honduras, goal and assist with his national team, Paulo Bernardo, 21 years old, from Pacos de Ferreira, and then of course, who started at the weekend. There is the return of Rio Atate, who they got a few years back. So again, young side with a lot of ground to make, if you like. Of course, last season they were in a difficult group with Leipzig and Real Madrid. They lost comfortably against both of them, and against Shakhtar, where I felt they could have done better. They failed to take the chances and they finished bottom of the group. So let's see if the experience comes good this season. Now, I've read also the Dutch media the weekend. The Dutch media don't fancy. Yes, got translator. The Dutch media don't fancy Celtic at all. There was an interview with the former Ajax and PSV boss De Moss, who said Rodgers will play childish football in the terms that it's going to be too attacking, too expensive. And because PSV destroyed Rangers recently, they think, of course, Feyenoord, who won the title last season, is going to beat Celtic at the Kuip, who's going to be, of course, a factor playing in the home side. Now, last season, Feyenoord won the league, second title they won in a century, thanks to Arne Slot, who's one of the best managers in Europe. He was linked to the Spurs job as well. And in the summer, they didn't have to spend too much. They sold Orkan Koku to Benfica. and they kept pretty much the same side that did well last season, also in Europa League. Remember, they beat Lazio 1-0, and then they lost in the quarterfinals against Roma. They sold Danilo, by the way, who scored 14 goals. He went to Ranger, but they kept Santiago Jimenez from Mexican, who scored 23 times last season. Now, he might be doubtful for this one, okay? So check the lineups, because without Jimenez, it could be tricky for Feyenoord. Jimenez already scored 5 goals so far. Ivanusek on the left-hand side, good player as well. Uzeda, Japanese, could be also interesting. The goalkeeper Biljov is injured. Scored 19 goals in Eredivisie, 3 wins, 2 draws. Last season only lost 2 home games in the entire year. In Europe, they beat 6-0 Sturm Graz, 7-1 Shakhtar, beat Lazio and Roma. Of course, 2 years ago, they went to the Conference League final. So they got a lot of experience in them. I feel is a side ready to take on the Champions League challenge. Over 2.5 goals, 189. But check the lineup, of course, if Jimenez score or doesn't score, over 2.5 goals, Feyenoord Celtic.
Well, keep it simple. Adam is telling us Feyenoord to win, and over 2.5 goals. They've scored plenty, 17 goals in the last 3 games, 17 goals in the last 3 games. Alvaro, but I was checking the recent history in the Champions League, 10 defeats in the last 11 games for Feyenoord. Horrible.
Yeah, pretty awful, of course. This is a repeat of the 1970 European Cup final, by the way.
Well done. I was going to say that. Well done.
The Dutch won, by the way. This is, in fact, the first European counter since then between these two sides. Interestingly enough, the debate that Daniele sparked right now, I like it because I think that the Dutch in the 70s took over from Scotland when it came to innovation in football. In the late 60s and the early 70s, Glasgow Rangers and Celtic got European silverware. And then it was Ajax and the revolution of football. And perhaps there is something coming from that time, I guess. But Scottish football has been, maybe not now, but they have probably raised and nurtured one of the best ever managers, Alex Ferguson, as well. Let's don't forget these things. But you know, Feyenoord did very well last season. In fact, the manager Arne Slot was also a candidate to replace Christian Stellini at Tottenham, as well as Ants Postecoglou was. Ants Postecoglou, before at Celtic, took over Spurs. But Feyenoord is the Dutch champion. It was a while that they didn't win the trophy. They were in the Conference League final in 2022, in the Europa League quarterfinals in 2023. They've been doing very well lately in Europe, and it's true. I mean, some important players are missing. Ueda, for example, the Japanese is not there. Santiago Jimenez, I think Daniele said that he's suspended too. The goalkeeper, Bilo, just broke his wrist. What a moment to do it, by the way, before the Champions League starts. And yet, they have scored 17 goals in the last 3 games. 6 versus Herenveen, for example. So I think they can score many goals, and that's why that points me in the direction of the scoring or the goals market. Over 2.5 goals, 166, as Daniele says. I'm gonna keep that one, or even both teams to score. But 166 is interesting too. I mean, Celtic with Brendan Rodgers. Let's see how they do. They've got 5 Japanese players, by the way, in the squad. Not all of them are the greatest Japanese players, because, for example, I was checking the lineup and the squad for the game against Germany, and none of these players from Celtic featured or played against Germany, but Furuhashi and Maeda, at least they were in the squad, but they didn't play a single minute. You know, Celtic, I think that they can lose here, but since I'm not too sure about Feyenoord and how they will feature in the return to the Champions League, I'm going to plump for the goals market. So over 2.5 goals, 166.
Since 2017, Feyenoord are not in the Champions League. This is a Europa League game. Harry is telling us, well, the 2 favorites to advance in this group are Lazio and Atletico de Madrid. But Alvaro, we have very recent the history of last season, and Atletico, they have a group with Borussia Leverkusen and who was the other one?
Borussia Leverkusen and Porto. no?
And Porto, exactly. And
Yeah.
they finished fourth. And we thought they had a good start this season. But on Saturday, they were horrible in Mestalla. They lost 3-0 to Valencia. And now they are facing Lazio. Also, with a lot of problems, only 3 points, only one victory. It was in Napoli, but terrible start also for Lazio, especially for Lazio in Serie A.
Yeah. With Sarri as a manager, this game is very special for Simeone, by the way. Simeone created his own image as an outsider, winning leagues with Atletico in 96 and with Lazio in 2000. Let's don't forget that Lazio at the time, with Cragnotti as a president, I believe, they were a big side and they were signing big players, but they have only won 2 league titles in their history, one of them with Diego Simeone. And Simeone has been the catalyzer of Atletico when they won the league in 96 with Simeone as a player, and when they won 2 leagues in the 21st century with Simeone as a manager. So I think that Simeone created his underdog culture as well, playing and winning leagues for sides that normally didn't win them. Atletico against Valencia was awful the other day. There are a few takeaways that I would like to take from that game. Number one, Cesar Azpilicueta can no longer be a right back. He cannot be a right back. He cannot be a full back either, or a right wing back, because he doesn't have that pace. I saw that last year. Cole Palmer got the better of him in a Manchester City-Chelsea game, and this season, Sergi Canós destroyed him yesterday. Sergi Canós, the former Brentford and Olympiacos player. Azpilicueta suffers there, and I really think that he has to play as a centre-back. And if he plays as a centre-back with Savic and Witsel plus Azpilicueta, that defense will be okay, even though I think Jimenez has a chance to play here. Atletico was awful against Valencia. They started the season well, but Simeone said yesterday after the defeat, or on Saturday after the defeat against Valencia, that was his worst game since he was the Atletico coach. And Jano Black, the goalkeeper, was also very critical with his footballers and his teammates. And he said that they had the talent, yes, but they don't have enough talent to play 50% of their own capacity. So Atletico has to wake up. And I think that in the Champions League, they will wake up, because last season, they got a wake-up call in the Champions League. They didn't qualify for the group stage. And also, let's don't forget that in 2018, they didn't qualify for the knockout round either. So Atletico has suffered group stage early upsets in the Champions League. So they know the message. They know what all this is about. And I think that they can resuscitate, and they can wake up as well ahead of this game against Lazio. I am totally aware that Atletico has many absentees, because Reinildo, Soyuncu, Koke, De Paul, Lemar, and Memphis are out for this game, but still Atletico can feature a very competitive midfielder with Barrios, Llorente, Saúl, and probably a proper defensive left back, like, for example, I don't know, anyone who can play there, but definitely not Rodrigo Riquelme, who is not a good defender. I'm going to go for Atletico to recover. I'm going to go for Atletico to play with maturity, because they know how to do it. A double chance for Atletico, 144. This is almost a safe bet for me, almost. Or a clean sheet for Atletico de Madrid. It pays 325. There is a massive element of risk in there. I'm not taking it, but if you're a believer in Simeone, I think that Atletico is capable of doing these things. Double clean sheet for Atletico, 325. But my favorite, a double chance for them, 144.
I tend to lean on Atletico, Dani, as well as Chinonso, for instance, Atletico to win and over 2 goals. Atletico to win either half for Dominic. But let's see if we can still trust this Lazio. What are the problems that Sarri is facing right now to have this offer?
Well, there are many problems. The defensive phases, the organization, the spaces between midfield and defense. And it's weird, because the team is pretty much the same as last year without Milinkovic-Savic, but you cannot just put it down to the absence of the Serb who went to the Saudi League. I think there are some mechanisms that are not quite working, but when Lazio clicks, and we saw it in the game at the Maradona before the international break, they are really good. They really can put top teams to the sword. Now, where Lazio struggle is against organized defenses that don't leave a lot of spaces at the back for Zaccagni and Anderson to run into. So, for example, against Juventus, they did struggle at the weekend. They lost 3-1 because Juventus managed to keep really tight, really compact, didn't play an extremely high line, whereas Napoli did a couple of weeks ago. But let's not forget, against Napoli in the first 30 minutes, Lazio were under the cosh. Provedella had to make a couple of good saves. Casale and Romagnoli were heroics. And against Juve took the chances really, really well with Vlahovic. So in the end, Lazio, yes, had all the possession in Turin, but lacked the cutting edge. It is to see what kind of rotation Sarri makes this time in the Champions League. Similar for Arsenal, which we analyze in the other video on this channel. Last season, Lazio finished second in Serie A because they were able to rotate 9-10 players each week in the UEFA Europa League. Sarri doesn't really like that sort of competition, but this time they can rotate. Qualifying for the next round of the Champions League is so important for Lazio. And this is a test of how deep the squad is. I would expect a lot of rotation, especially in midfield, when there is Guendouzi, Rovella, Kamada. I think they will alternate. But up front, is Immobile going to be able to play every 3 days? I don't think so. And we need to see more contribution from the new replacement or the new players they brought in, Isaacsen, Tati Castellanos. They need to add something. At the moment, it looks like the team from last season, yes, with Zaccagni, Anderson, Immobile, and the rotations in midfield. It is concerning that so far in Serie A have kept no clean sheets. Last season, they kept 21 clean sheets in Serie A. They were really defensively sound. At home last season in the Europa League, won 3, 1 draw, 1 defeat, conceded 7, only 1 clean sheet in Europe. So you can tell there was a different Lazio when they travel or when they played in European competition. So let's see how it goes. And yes, for Atletico Madrid, I totally agree with Alvaro. I think they've lost that defensive solidity, especially in Europe, that made them really, really strong. The season has started pretty well. What Atletico Madrid have, the Lazio perhaps don't have, its goal scorers, the likes of Morata, Griezmann, Depay, I think is still injured. But if you look at is out, yeah. If you look at the contribution of these three, only in Europe, 86 goals altogether for these three players. And by the way, Griezmann is only 15 goals short of becoming Athletic all-time top goal scorer, 157 goals for Griezmann. Perhaps doesn't get the credit that he deserves for scoring so many goals for one of the top 3 sides in Spain, but not close to Barcelona, Real Madrid. Anyway, it could be a tight game. In terms of odds, I think there is value in backing Lazio, at least initially. I'm going to go for an Asian handicap 0 for Lazio in the first half, 206. Ends in a draw, no worry, get your money back. If Lazio wins the first half by scoring the first goal, for example, you win 209.
Actually, Griezmann said in a recent interview that he wanted to stay at Atletico de Madrid to become the greatest top scorer of the team instead of going to Saudi Arabia. So let's see if he's able to score in this game. Most of our audience thinks that we won't see many goals in this game if we have Simeone, Lazio, Atletico de Madrid. Most of the people are going for an under, as we can see in the comments, for Nedim Saric, for Krutzen. This should be an under. Well, both favorite to go to the last 16 round. Let's see what happened. Next, move on to Group F. This is the group of death, the most difficult group. We have Milan, Newcastle, PSG, and Borussia Dortmund. First stop is in San Siro after that awful game in the derby for Milan, again losing against Inter, 5 consecutive defeats in the derbies for Milan. Before that, actually, they were doing a good start of the season with all victories in Serie A with Leao scoring goals, and now they face Newcastle, that for most of the people could be the surprise of this group. Dani, you follow closely Serie A, of course, with Oddspedia, the Premier League as well. Can you see Newcastle getting points from San Siro?
They'll go there with confidence, I think. They know they can trouble Milan. And Milan, yes, had a good start to the season. They beat Bologna, Torino, Roma comfortably. But, as Tyson Fury, former heavy champion, boxing champion, said once, you are good. Everyone is a champion until they get punched in the nose. And that's exactly what happened with Milan. At the weekend, they found a team in Inter. They knew how to exploit the wide spaces, how to impose the rhythm, and they were quite quite happy Inter to leave the ball to Milan, who had possession close to 70% at times, but they lacked that conviction and they lacked that cutting edge, and Inter were extremely clinical. I think Milan made the same mistakes once again that they did in the derby, in the first derby of Champions League. They lost 2-0. Inter scored after 4 minutes. This time in the derby, they scored after 7 minutes. Milan looked exposed, especially in wide areas, and I do understand the tactic of Pioli of trying to put Calabria as an extra midfield, the right back, to get a little bit of ball possession, but they looked themselves exposed in the counter-attacks, so at that point it would have been better to play actually with an extra midfield rather than the right back tucked in. And unfortunately for the two new signings of Milan, Reinders and Loftus-Cheek, they looked really good in the previous 3 games, but now that they had to run backwards and manage the transitions of Inter, they didn't look defensively sound. They couldn't stop the passes. And you know who Milan looked at, who they lacked in the game against Inter at the weekend? Well, Sandro Tonali, who they sold to Newcastle United, a player able to do both phases and obviously defensively sound and knows how to manage the times in the games. And now without Tonali, they did look shaky. Of course, not having Tomori, the pace of Tomori, which they're going to get back because he was suspended in Serie A, affected them. The pair of Thiaw and Kjaer are way too slow. So let's see how they feature against Newcastle. I think Milan can play expansive football, can have, of course, the partnership between Theo and Leao can be dangerous on the left-hand side, but let's see against a Premier League side that makes the rhythm one of their weapons. How do they fare? Milan only won 1 game of the last 11 played against Premier League opposition, and that was against Spurs last season when Spurs were poor and Milan played with 5 at the back, lost twice against Chelsea. With Newcastle, this is a great occasion for them. They come back into Europe after 10 years. They play the Champions League after 20 years. They are not in a great state of form. The win against Brentford was a little bit scrappy, I would say. Only 2 shots on target. But Eddie Howe made 5 changes at the weekend because obviously he knows they might have chances here if they go with the best 11. And in fact, Tonali didn't play at all the weekend. There were a first start for Anderson, Wilson, etc. One last word. I think Eddie Howe should play with Wilson up front based on form. He's one of the best striker at the moment in the Premier League. He has scored 14 in the last 17 appearances, contributed to 24 goals since the start of the season. It's very unlikely he's going to play with Isaac and Wilson from the start, but probably it's time for the Englishman to grab the starting 11. Let's see, because again, with Newcastle, same goes with Lazio, same goes with Arsenal, the same idea. Last season, they were extremely intense, extremely physical, but they played once a week. They have strengthened the side during the summer. Have they strengthened enough to be able to compete in the Premier League and in the Champions League? We will see. Only 6 away clean sheets, by the way, for Newcastle last season. Haven't beaten a top 6 Premier League side in ages. I think they could get a point here. I like the X2 double chance and under 3.5 goals, so a rather cagey game, but again, could be 1-1, 235.
Well, Alvaro, as usually happens, the Premier League teams get really good odds, and Newcastle, they are favorites to advance in this group, together with PSG, of course, and even the odds for a home win are very high. In my opinion, the bookies back Newcastle somehow.
Because everyone has to watch international football a little bit and has a wider knowledge of what's happening around the world. But it happens a lot. And it's obviously something that we cannot fight, and personally I won't fight. I just say that the odds for the English sides many times are overhyped. Are they in this case? Look, for this game in particular, I'm going to do the opposite of what Daniele did, but my pick is not mutually exclusive with him, because I'm going to go for an Asian handicap 0 for Milan, which pays 191. I think that the draw is not too bad for Newcastle United anyway. And I do believe that Milan really, as much as they won the league in 2022 and they reached the Champions League semi-finals in the 2023. They've been punching a little bit above their weight for 2 years. I really do. I think that their squad wasn't that good, and it's a little bit miraculous that they won the Italian league in 2022. In my opinion, at least, I think that there are better sides in Italy and there were better squads, definitely. They just took profit at their moment and profit at the occasion. But right now they are third in the Serie A. And if we forget about what happened against Inter, which was a demolition, yeah, I agree. Milan's start hasn't been that bad. I don't know about the landing of the new signings. They will need time. Loftus-Cheek is a very active midfielder, but he doesn't have the game on his head. He's not an ideologist. He's not a computer. Milan doesn't have that player because Tonali was that player and they haven't replaced that player well. Then Pulisic is inconsistent, and Samu Chukwueze, I really like him a lot. I think that he earned basically his signing for AC Milan after his game at Santiago Bernabeu last season. But Brahim and Tonali left, and Milan is still adapting to the new players. But they've got one who is excellent, Rafael Leao, and I'm gonna go for him to score or assist, 225. Leao is more is the best player they've got, and Milan is more dependent on this player than Newcastle is on anybody else, really. That's why I'm gonna back, if I go for the individual market, Rafael Leao to score or assist. And when it comes to Newcastle, look, they are very good. They are rocky. Last season, they defied a little bit the odds and they qualified for the Champions League, leaving behind Chelsea or Tottenham, for example, or Liverpool, which was very impressive. And I think that they have had a really tough calendar to start the season. Let's don't forget that they played against Aston Villa, Manchester City, Liverpool, Brighton, and Brentford. All these five finished in the top 9 of the Premier League last season. It was never going to be easy. The rumors that Eddie Howe should be sacked, or the claims by the most fanatic supporters, were absolutely ridiculous. This manager is doing a good job, and they got good players. I don't know, that thing that Daniele says about Callum Wilson, Isak, is true. Callum Wilson is scoring more goals, but I don't think that he's a better player than Isak. So, but at the same time, Callum Wilson has done enough to deserve to start at San Siro, that's for sure. But anyway, I'm not going to change what I said at the beginning. Asian handicap 0 for Milan, 191. I like it.
Well, in the individual markets, gaming is flagging Tonali to be on the books to get a card. Tonali playing again, of course. In San Siro, at least 3 goals for Tuchar. Let's see what happens, because Newcastle is not in form, as we can also read.
I don't think they're not in form. I think they've been better. But last season, against Aston Villa, Liverpool, Manchester City, and Brighton, they collected 3 points exactly. That's the thing. So it was tough. It was a very tough. You play against 4 sides who play in Europe. It's the toughest calendar you can have.
Yeah. It was very tough.
Well, this is the toughest group, actually, and the other teams are also not in great form, we have to say. PSG, Dortmund, I know Alvaro has faith on PSG and on Luis Enrique, but they lost at the weekend. It's a bad start because they also drew a couple of games at the beginning of the season. It's a new project, a lot of new faces. But still, if you have Mbappe in the pitch and you are losing, you are doing something wrong. Whereas for Dortmund, great victory against Freiburg away, but they weren't able to beat Heidenheim or Bochum, weak teams. In the Bundesliga with Dortmund, there is always a big issue, Alvaro, when they play away. It happens in the Bundesliga. It happens also in Europe. And to be honest, PSG to win 1.8 last season, it was probably, this game was 1.3 or something like this.
100%, and I take it. I take it with 2 hands. And I know that there are people here who doubt, but I take it. Because, the question that I was thrown by someone in this group, I'm not going to mention names. How can you trust PSG? But the question is the reverse one. How can I trust Dortmund? They were the laughing stock in the Bundesliga last season. The laughing stock. The worst possible Bayern. They don't win the title. Dortmund, 2-3 years ago, they had 2 of the 3 best young, fresh prospects in Europe. Who are those prospects? Where are they? Who are those? Dortmund don't have those players anymore. Mukoko, let's wait and see. Adeyemi, let's wait and see. Really, I don't think that those players are playing for this side right now. And PSG, they reached a Champions League final in 2020. They are still adapting to a new manager, but they've got far better players. And Kylian Mbappe, maybe he's not the best scorer in the world, but that doesn't mean that he's not the best player in the world. In my opinion, he is by a mile. And in the Champions League at home, he always delivers. So Kylian Mbappe to score 173 is for me. It's for me. I take that one. I'm not going to keep it in the ACCA because injuries may happen. But otherwise I will take it with two hands as well in my ACCA too. But Paris Saint-Germain to win 182 by far the best bet of the show so far.
Well, many people trust here Dortmund actually in this.
Why?
I don't know why, but I feel
They
Dortmund
couldn't
win
beat Chelsea.
for Sumo. They have a scary front line, for
They did beat
example,
Chelsea.
Malen.
They did beat Chelsea.
No, they couldn't knock out Chelsea. Daniele, do you know how many goals did Chelsea score in April last season?
2 or 1, I think.
One. And it
One.
was an own goal.
How many chances? No, true. But how many chances Dortmund missed in the first leg against Chelsea? I know they don't count.
Because they are floppers. I'm sorry to become a ranter here because it's not my style. Because they are floppers. They are a flop every now and then, year after year.
No, I know, but I don't think they're gonna win. But I wouldn't be that sure they're gonna be defeated.
PSG is not a flop.
No,
they are not a flop. When they lose
in
the Champions League, they lose against top opposition. Otherwise, normally they don't lose.
Absolutely.
Last season, they went through in a group with Juve and Benfica.
Second, though.
Yeah, but they went through.
Yeah, no, I mean, they went through, but...
And PSG is not a flop. There is a guy here, Sumo85, asking me. They reached the Champions League final in 2020, and they didn't win it for a chance of Mbappe. And they beat Bayern in 2021, when Bayern was probably the best side in Europe. They have done great things in Europe. They just missed the final edge, the cutting edge. But they are always nearly there. Semi-final, quarterfinals. Dortmund is not a candidate for a quarterfinal this season. No way.
Absolutely.
Not even to advance in the group, by the way. They are the ones with the lowest odds.
They struggle. I think for PSG, the biggest challenge this season is for Luis Enrique is to gel all the new signings and make sure they are not just Mbappe plus 10, but they are a proper team. That's the thing. And, the transition might be slow because they haven't got Neymar, they haven't got Verratti anymore, who's probably one of the players that I don't think we give enough credit, enough respect for what is done for PSG. And, of course, they haven't got Messi. So when the players look up, they only see Mbappe, and the tendency is to throw the ball to Mbappe. I saw them against Nice. They done time and time again at the weekend. They lost 3-2, and they look like a team that, as soon as there is a little bit of difficulties, they go under. But they had good results before, won 3-1 against Lens, 4-1 against Leon. So I think they need to be patient and find a new identity. They got 11 new signings this season, spent 400 millions. And I think overall, the team is younger, it's better, is a side that Luis Enrique can work with the likes of Skriniar, Asensio, Colomwani, Gonzalo Ramos. They maybe don't have the leaders yet, but it will take time. Only one clean sheet in the last 5 games, though, for PSG. So as a team that is rebuilding, I think that's normal to concede a few goals. Always conceded at home last season in the Champions League. Lost 8 games in total in the league. Borussia, we said many times, yes, they are bottlers. I think they are chokers. They should have won that league last season comfortably. But if you look actually the head-to-head against Bayern last year, they never beat them. So they were never better than Bayern in 90 minutes. Now, this season, of course, without Bellingham, is going to be challenging. They got some interesting signing, Mecha, Fulkrug, Sabitzer. These are squad players for me. They're not starters. So if anything, they've strengthened the squad, but as overall quality is gone down, I think. So far, they've conceded in 3 of the last 4. They drew a bad game against newly promoted Heidenheim after being 2-0 up. They were a bit clunky, unimaginative. I think if there is a manager who's under pressure now, it's Terzic. Obviously, if he doesn't get the results in the Champions League and in the league, he might be going, considering that Nagelsmann is out of work, and he could look like a good replacement. 1-4-2 at the weekend. Normally high-scoring games. I think they're going to lose this one, but where do I find the value? In the Asian handicap plus 0.75 for them. If they lose by 1 goal margin, which could be a 2-1 defeat, you do get half your money back. But yes, 0.75, 192. That's
Well,
Daniele, Edu, PSG in Europe in the last 11 years, since the Qatari takeover, 11 years, right? 4
Yep.
Champions League quarterfinals, which is fine. 1 semi-final, 1 final, and in the last 2 years they were knocked out by Real Madrid and Bayern. They weren't knocked out by Maccabi Haifa. They weren't knocked out by Millwall. They were knocked out by top opposition. So I know that they are not the best team in Europe, but they are a serious side.
Yeah, they are, but probably they've invested to be beyond these numbers, no? In the Champions League,
Yeah,
still better
true.
than Dortmund, that's for sure. But perhaps with this level of investment, they should top this group, as the odds tell us. But let's see, because last season, remember, they couldn't top the group, and then they had a difficult game in the last 16. This is happening often to PSG, and then their run is over. Both teams to score, for many people, is a good idea because PSG are conceding a lot. Borussia Dortmund, they are not reliable. I think we all agree on that. This is 1.6 in case you are backing these both teams to score. Well, this group is very open and interesting. Group F, probably group G is the less open, because here we have Man City, and then Leipzig. They should be the second best in this group. They are playing away in Switzerland against Young Boys. Leipzig to win is 1.68. This Leipzig, Alvaro, look better, on the other hand, than last season. They've started the season way better as well, winning the German Super Cup, only 1 defeat against Leverkusen. They have great names. I know that you like a lot Xavi Simons, also Penda is scoring goals, so full gas on Leipzig, I would say.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, they are third in the Bundesliga. They beat Augsburg in the weekend 3-0. They are little by little improving their passing accuracy year after year. They are third in passing accuracy in the Bundesliga, close to 90%. So this is not only fast football. The crossing is very good by Leipzig, but also the passing is very good by them. I think that Dani Olmo is not making it to the game, but still Leipzig has a good depth in the squad. Šeško and Timo Werner did not start in the weekend, which makes me think that Šeško will definitely start. Let's see about Timo Werner. Xavi Simons, 4 assists to his name this season. Not bad, not bad. And then Openda and Simons, 3 goals each. So, you know, if you like the individual markets, maybe Xavi Simons can be a good option. Check, of course, if he makes it to the Matchday squad, and then if he starts, obviously. And then they got a fantastic crosser as well, a man who is constantly putting balls in the box, like David Raum. And this player could be a good assister as well for Šeško, but maybe that individual combination is a little bit more tricky, a little bit more difficult. But Xavi Simons, if he plays, to have an impact in scoring or assisting is something that I could back, yes, for this game. Maybe both teams to score is not a bad one, because Leipzig has conceded a few goals this season, 4 in total. So, you know, that can be a possibility. When it comes to Young Boys, look, they haven't conceded in 5 games. I am in charge of that. I know it. But this is Leipzig we are talking about. They haven't suffered a home defeat in over a year. Only 2 losses at home in 2022. This is about the Swiss side of Young Boys. But still, their numbers at home in the Champions League are obviously not as good as in the local league. But in the group stage in 2021-2022, yes, they drew with Atalanta and they beat Manchester United in this ground. And in the 18-19 season, they got 4 points out of 9 as well at home. So in the Champions League at home, they are not terrible. They got in the last 2 participations 4 out of 9. But I still back really RB Leipzig. I think that the Young Boys are going to fight for the 3rd spot with Red Star. RB Leipzig to win 168 because they are in a very good moment. And since they are scoring in a free flow way, maybe Leipzig to win and over 1.5 goals in that game, 1.8.
Well, Man United couldn't beat Young Boys in both games 2 years ago in the Champions League. Goals and Leipzig to win, Dani, is the most common tip in this channel right now.
maybe this is a stage too far for young boys, and being here really is a bonus. I don't think they wouldn't mind in playing in the Europa League and getting a little bit more of experience there, but obviously, 3 home games against the top sides, I mean, at least against Manchester City, of course, Leipzig, and then Red Star Belgrade are a bonus. I think this is very similar, young boys, to Red Star. We're going to talk about this in a moment. They dominate at home domestically. They're used to winning all the time. Then European football is different. Of course, some players of young boys have done that before, but it's a very difficult leap to make, I would say. They knocked out Maccabi Haifa. Last year, they didn't even play in the Conference League as they lost against Anderlecht and finished bottom of the Champions League in 21-22. Yes, of course, they beat Manchester United in 2018. They even beat Juventus at home. So, they are not unused to these stages. Eyes on Cedric Itten, scored 23 goals last year, 1-0 away at the weekend against Neuchâtel. Samax Leipzig, I think they improved a lot last season under Marco Rose. Once they sacked Tedesco, they found a better way of playing. And so far, they are showing good quality. I think for me, they are the second best team in Bundesliga. They could challenge for the titles, the likes of Xavi Simons, as we mentioned, Kevin Volland, etc. I like a lot Mohamed Simakan as well. They have got a strong squad, of course, and is a good model how to sell your best player, but still do not lose quality. Last year, they kept clean sheet against Celtic and Shakhtar away from home. Beat Real Madrid domestically. Let's not forget, it was a very good performance from Leipzig. Asian handicap, -1 for the German side, pays really well. 209 if they only win with 1 goal margin, you get your money back.
I have not forgotten that defeat, Dani, but it was okay. Goals, hopefully. Sorry?
You were already qualified?
No, I don't think so, to be honest. But okay. Almost. I think Real Madrid needed 1 point in the.
All right.
But Leipzig also put a fight at the Bernabeu.
Yes.
Well, and Leipzig was way worse actually last season at the beginning of the season, at least, and then they got better and better during the season. They are a very good side. Perhaps we see goals in Switzerland. We all think that, and I think we take for granted that we will see goals in Manchester, Man City, Red Star, the boot for the champions. Alvaro, I think the odds are the lowest that we will find maybe in the whole group stage. Is Man City to win is only 1.08. So I guess we should go full Asian handicap on Man City, or what do you think? Hi, Dani.
Yeah, I just stopped out of a sudden. Did you ask me a question?
No, let's start with Alvaro.
Okay, go on then.
To the question of Edu, I guess that handicapping Manchester City is one of the few ways of getting some decent money here. Of course, I mean, they are the European champions, and at the end of the day, they've been doing very well in Europe for a long time now, negotiating the group stage, playing with finesse, and also with they've been ruthlessness. This is one thing that defines Manchester City now, because there were a couple of things that Manchester City had, like in 2018, 2019, 2020, that they defined their achievements in Europe. One of them was they didn't have the capacity to come back in games. And that was something that made Manchester City very stressed, because they had to score the first goal always. But that thing disappeared from the moment that they won a Premier League, just coming back against Aston Villa from 2-0 to 3-2. And they also had one thing that was an impediment to win the Champions League. Manchester City was very bad at stopping counterattacks in the past. But right now, you rarely catch them on the break. This is thanks to Pep Guardiola just doubling up Rodri's position with John Stones or someone else, and with Pep Guardiola using 4 centre-backs, and one of them being very fast, like Kyle Walker, who plays as a right-back, obviously. But Manchester City has become more robust as the years went by, and now in Europe they are playing with, not in Europe, in general, they are playing with, I will say that they are better armor plates. They believe more in themselves, and they know that during games there will be adversities, but they know how to negotiate them better than before. All this at the expense of playing free flow, beautiful football. In fact, the definition that Pep Guardiola gave of Mateus Nunes last Friday defines a little bit the new Manchester City too. He said about Mateus Nunes that he didn't have a good first touch, that he had some abilities that cannot be trained, and those things that he doesn't have can be trained. So basically, Manchester City has added to their back a player without a lot of passing accuracy, which is basically what Julian Alvarez has as well, which is something that Mateo Kovacic has. I mean, Gundogan is no left. He's not there. Kevin De Bruyne is out with an injury. Manchester City has lost a little bit of passing accuracy. David Silva is not there either, at the expense of having more speed, like for example, Jeremy Doku, Mateus Nunes, and at the expense of having probably more firepower with Erling Haaland. This is the new Manchester City, and it has worked so far. With Julian Alvarez as well being one of those players who has stepped up. The other day, in fact, he took a free kick in the game against West Ham United. He played in the Kevin De Bruyne position, despite having played 5 days before against Bolivia as a number 9. So, versatility, fast players, this is the new Manchester City. I think that they're going to win this game, and I think that the value is probably in Manchester City winning both halves, 162, but I prefer, though, even though it pays less, over 1.5 goals in the second half, 1.5. And if you go for the individual market, Erling Haaland is not attractive unless you look for Erling Haaland to score 2 goals or more, which he's totally capable of doing because he has scored 7 goals in 7 games this season. Erling Haaland to score 2 goals or more, 2.3.
But perhaps we can see Pep Guardiola also substituting Haaland to give him some rest, as we saw in the past. This game is not very attractive to bet, Dani, not very appealing. We have some comments, Tyson or Philip, telling us that they won't bet here because it's very difficult, as Alvaro was saying, finding good odds.
Yes, Manchester City won 35 of the last 37 home games in all competitions, and they won 18 in a row since drawing 1-1 with Everton in December 2022. That tells you the story. At home, they are confident, almost unstoppable, and also away, I would say they are pretty decent. Obviously, having won the Champions League and having shaken off the fear of winning, and despite for me it was a heartbreak to see, of course, Inter defeated in the final, I appreciated the fact that the last 20 minutes, Pep Guardiola, the inventor of tiki-taka, played Italian way. They defended. They understood that to win such an important trophy, you need to go through difficult spells. You need to know how to suffer, and they did it. And that gives them a
Would you qualify Guardiola's defensive? Because if you place the defensive line 55 meters away from your goalkeeper, that's not Italian style. I'm sorry, Daniele.
No, but in the last 20 minutes of the final,
because the opponent plays.
Yes, of course. I'm just not in the final. They play well, but in the last 20 minutes, he played with the defense 15 meters, 20 meters from the goalkeeper in a sort of cagey way, and that's exactly what he needed to do. And I think I love the fact that they did it, and they understood that was the way to win in the game because Inter were threatening. It gives them a massive boost of confidence that they can manage the tight margins. But, let's go back to this game. This is a game that Manchester City wins easily after 25 minutes. I'm going to say more. This is a group that Manchester City wins easily after 4 games. And then in December, Guardiola starts the rotation, 7 players in, 7 players out. You never know what formation he puts on. And so the story goes. We've seen it time and time again. I think it will take time for Manchester City to be scintillating because they've lost some experienced players, the likes of Gundogan, Mahrez, they're without De Bruyne.
And quality. Technique. They have lost a lot of technique.
Yeah, of course. But they will get there. Give them a little bit of time. They will get there. They are by far the best team in the world. You can use all the stats, all the numbers, everything you want to say. 7 players of Manchester City have been shortlisted to win the Ballon d'Or. I think that tells you pretty much, everything. And those 7 players, they will play for every team in the world at the moment. Let's talk a little bit about Red Star Belgrade because they give them a little bit of credit. They won the 6th consecutive title in Serbia. Obviously, their biggest chance of qualifying are picking up points at the Ratko Mitic Stadium or the so-called Maracana, when it's going to be difficult to play there. I remember Liverpool that won the Champions League, went there and got beaten 2-0. Probably this side is not as strong as that team in 2011, but they could create some issues. The star player is Jean-Philippe Crasso from Saint-Etienne, already scored 5 goals this season. Last season, they didn't do really well in the Europa League, bottom of the group. They won 2-0 2 home games, and in the previous year, they were knocked out by Rangers. So yes, the level is not quite there. So far, 5 wins, 2 defeats in Serbia. They lost 2-1 at the weekend. Let's talk about the odds. Let's talk about the value. As I said, I think at 30 minutes, Manchester City are already 2-0 up in this game. I'm going to go Asian handicap, minus 125 in the first half for City, 193.
Okay, difficult to find good odds in this game, but it's going to be difficult in the next one as well, because in the next group, Group H, we have Barcelona, Royal Antwerp, a new team as well in the Champions League. Barcelona to win is only 1.2, of course, under pressure, because Barcelona, they were knocked out of the Champions League in the last 2 editions in the group stage. Now it's an easy one with Shakhtar and Porto, and also Alvaro, this Barcelona have added good quality, good players, and they are already paying off. I'm talking about Joao Cancelo, Joao Felix, the Joaos arriving in the last days of the transfer market, so they cannot repeat the failures of the previous years in this easy group.
Look, Edu, it will be a massive failure if Barcelona doesn't get far in the Champions League this season, and if they don't negotiate the group stage, it's a monumental fiasco. I think that they will do this time. In the past, they've been a little bit unlucky in the group stage with the quality of their opponents, Bayern and Benfica in 2022, 21-22, and Bayern and Inter in the 22-23 season. This season is different. They got an easy group. I believe that they are going to negotiate it, and I'm going to back Barcelona here. One big difference between Barcelona in the previous seasons and this season is the fact that now they've got a very, very competitive squad. It's been the levers, it's been the players on loan, it's been the investment that has stretched the club depth to unimaginable horizons, but Barcelona now has a good squad. Look, in 2021, not to go too far, Barcelona gave 42 games to Martin Braithwaite, gave 42 games to Francisco Trincao, gave 41 games to Serginho Dest, gave 39 games to Mingueza. That was Barcelona's squad. But right now, you check the players and they are fantastic. There is no mediocrity. There are no average players who can hardly find a start in a Champions League side. All those Dest, Artur, Eric Garcia are gone. And, the team is not perfect. I know that. In fact, Barcelona last season in Europe, they conceded 5 against Bayern, 4 against Inter, and 4 against Manchester United in 2 games with each opponent, which was a massive contrast with the good defensive numbers of Barcelona in La Liga. The Champions League is still the subject, but that Barcelona keeps on failing constantly, but I believe that here they are going to win. When it comes to Antwerp, well, they are the last Belgian side to feature in a European final. It was in 1993 in the European Cup Winners' Cup. It's the first time for them in the Champions League. They are coming from the playoffs. They are the league winners. Toby Alderweireld, they scored that screamer that gave them the title in over 60 years. And 7 years ago, they were in the second division. The manager is Mark van Bommel. I'm sure that he will try to make the game cagey. Mark van Bommel is one of the players that has played. Absolutely. Absolutely. And he's been a butcher as well, and I'm sure that he will tell their players, look, I have played at Camp Nou because I was a Barcelona player, and I know that the best way of winning Barcelona is cutting the flow, slowing them down, making many faults. So I can see Mark van Bommel putting the custom of Jose Bordalas for this game and make his team Royal Antwerp play in a different way. I think that Barcelona are going to win, so I'm going to go for the following. Look, I've got 4 odds here. I'm going to give all of them, but my favorite probably is Asian handicap -2 for Barcelona, 188. But Barcelona to win at 30 minutes, 183, is a decent one as well. Maybe Barcelona to score in both halves 162, but definitely the Asian handicap -2 for Barcelona 188. I like it because, for example, look against Cádiz in La Liga. In the first half, I think that it was a draw, but then in the second half, they killed the game and they scored 2 goals. I think that maybe the game is not as straightforward, even though I think that they will be winning it in 30 minutes. But my favorite bet is Barcelona overall in the full time, 90 minutes, having an Asian handicap of -2.
Dani, you know well Belgian football. This is Royal Amber Getafe.
Royal Antwerp, Getafe, why?
If they play Bordalas style defensively.
Yeah. Well, last season, yeah,
for-
again now. Last season they were the best defense in Belgium. They only conceded 34 goals. I think for times they looked the second best team in Belgium, maybe third behind Club Brugge and Union Saint-Gilloise, but they won it in that dramatic fashion. And yes, I mean, you have to be wary because, you know, a team that is so solid defensive domestically, how are they going to fare in Europe against stronger attacks? They are debutants and they already made a rookie mistakes because they left Sam Vines, who is a US defender, out of the list of the Champions League, and he's played over 50 games for them. So not exactly, you know, the last player that they scouted. They left them out inexplicably. They won, yes, the league last season. Last success was in 1957. It is a side with a little bit of experience in them. Of course, you got the likes of Vincent Janssen, who once played for Spurs, didn't leave great memories, scored 21 last season, Alderweireld, as we mentioned, but also they sold Avila to Ajax and Pacho to Eintracht. A weekend won 3-0 against Westerlo. I think this is going to be a vintage Barcelona, so a Barcelona that keeps a clean sheet here, as they did last season for 25 times domestically, despite a very poor record in Europe. So I'm going to go for both to score 194, but you can even go for a Barcelona win 2-0 here. I think Barcelona going to wrap it up easily.
Ter Stegen is fantastic. Both teams to score for Tushar going for the corner markets as well. Will Araujo play, Alvaro? Perhaps you have some news?
Doubtful. The other day, on Saturday, Jules Koundé and Christensen played together, and Araujo didn't feature. So it is very likely that Xavi Hernandez uses the same centre-back pair again.
And the other game in this group, probably to fight for the second spot, this game is important. Shakhtar Donetsk, Porto, although Porto, they are favorites to qualify behind Barcelona. We tend to look down to Shakhtar, Dani, and the bookies do exactly the same, perhaps because of the situation in Ukraine, probably, but we always have really high odds for Shakhtar, and at the end they are always competitive. They sell the best players, but then some people new come and they are good.
No, I'm not gonna fall into the trap of underestimating Shakhtar again. I think they are a good side. Obviously, they are a side that has got issues outside the pitch, but last season they rebuilt really, really well. They lost all the foreign players, and they managed to put a very good performance in both competition, Champions League and Europa League. This time they're gonna play in Hamburg. It's gonna be a sellout crowd, and we saw what happened to the Polish national side when they play in Wroclaw against England in Euro qualifiers. The crowd lift them, and I think this could happen again. Perhaps, yes, we are underestimating Ukrainian football. So far, 5 wins, 2 draws in the Ukrainian League. Last season at home, they drew against Celtic, almost beat Real Madrid, who equalized in stoppage time, beat Rennes in the Europa League, then they were beaten by Feyenoord. So overall, a decent performance last season from the Ukrainian side. They got a new manager in Patrick Leuven. Now, they got some interesting players, Matvienko, Bondarenko, Zubkov, you know, the Ukrainian stronghold, but also Castillo from Ecuador, Vujnik, 2 good youngsters, and, you know, both fullbacks are from Georgia. Georgian football is on the up recently, and Chigrinsky, 36 years old, from Barcelona. He's back. I thought he retired, but he's actually back where he started. For Porto, last season they won 3 domestic trophies, but missed on the league. They recruited again promising young players. They
Pepe?
are without... sorry?
Like Pepe.
Like Pepe, yes. But this time they are without Otavio and Uribe, so they have to change the midfield a little bit. Still with Conceição, very well drilled with the 4-2-2, the 7th season in charge, and I think Conceição probably is going to move on after this season. He's been linked to Napoli as well this year. Last season they lost the first 2 games in the Champions League, but still qualified. Only kept 1 clean sheet in 6 games. So far, they got an outstanding goalkeeper in Diogo Costa. Taremi scored his first goal of the season at the weekend. They won 1-0. But they got other interesting players. Even Jaime scored 9 goals for Famalicão last season. He's Spaniard, by the way. Frank Navarro signed from Gel Vicente. Needs time to prove himself, but maybe it could be a typical cagey game anytime the Porto are involved. Normally, they're not high-scoring games. Under 2.75 goals, 202. If there are 3 goals in the game, you lose half a stake.
They are struggling a bit, Porto, in the Portuguese league against minor teams. Sumo is telling us that Porto hasn't played very well and that we shouldn't trust Porto in Europe, probably.
Yeah, and I think that this season Benfica looks like a big favorite to win the league. I think that we can agree on that according to the investment they have made. At the end of the day, Benfica has made a net spend of over 40 million in Portugal, whereas Porto is right the opposite. They have made a plus 34 in transfers. They have sold a lot of players. Otavio for a huge sum. He left. Nico arrived, the Barcelona player, but I don't think Nico is that good. I want to see if he plays or if he starts in this game. Pepe, we mentioned him before. He hasn't been training in the last couple of days, but God knows, maybe he's available for this game. Porto is in the league is fine. I mean, they've got 13 points. They are second in the league. I think that they are going to qualify this time. And yes, Shakhtar, let's see how they do with the new manager, because they changed from the Chervi to Igor Jovicevic and then Patrick Van Leeuwen, all of them with different ideas. The Chervi obviously did fantastic. Patrick Van Leeuwen was the manager of the month in Ukraine in October last season. Then they've got a few players who are making kind of the difference. I think that Lassina Traoré has been scoring goals. Mikola Matviyenko as well, Kaschuk too. They top the league with 17 points, but maybe Porto comes as a favorite here for me. But if you don't think that the 186 for Porto to win is very inviting, there is always the option of handicapping them with an Asian handicap minus 0.25. So if they draw, you only suffer, have a lose. But if they win, you win 155.
All right, Sumo is telling us that even if they haven't played well in the league, he is going for Porto to win. Corello, hello Corello, by the way, Porto to score less than 2 goals. If you are looking for the other tips, the games that are going to be played on Wednesday, we have another video. It will be published very soon in the channel if you are looking for the Champions League tips for Wednesday. This is all for you guys. Just to finish the video, Alvaro, your best bet, safe bet?
Yeah, it would be an Asian handicap minus 1.25 for Barcelona, 140.
And Dani?
Half-time, full-time, Manchester City to beat Red Star Belgrade.
Man City has to be in the mix of safe bets, that's for sure. And Yoraka?
Feyenoord, Celtic over 1.5 goals. Manchester City Asian handicap minus 2 against Red Star Belgrade at home. PSG, Borussia Dortmund, both team to score. And at the San Siro, Milan, Newcastle under 3.5 goals. 389 is the total.
And Alvaro?
You will understand, Edu, that I'm going to go for PSG to win, as I made very clear before. Manchester City, Red Star, over 1.5 goals in the second half. Barcelona to score in both halves, and an Asian handicap of minus 1.5 for Barcelona. Altogether, 685.
Well, really high odds for your ACCA. Fabio is a Porto supporter telling us that Porto plays differently in domestic or European competitions. Well, it happens a lot with big teams from less important European leagues, actually. Well, thank you, Dani. Thanks, Alvaro. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Don't forget to leave your comments. We really appreciate your support. So if you enjoy the videos, keep pressing the like and subscribing to our channel. You have another video for the tips on Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.